Welcome to the Center for Faith and Rare Disease podcast, Living a Life of Faith as a Rare Disease Patient and Advocate. We're so excited that you're joining us today. Our vision at the Center for Faith and Rare Disease is that those impacted by rare diseases or special conditions will be strengthened in their relationship with Jesus Christ and demonstrate their deep and abiding rare faith to others. Today on our podcast, we have Hugh McCoy, an ACBC certified biblical counselor from New Vision Baptist Church in Murfreesboro, as well as Sarah Powlison, who's a patient advocate, speaker, poet, and author of Certainly Sonder, and she lives in Northeast Ohio. We know that this conversation is going to be a blessing for you. This is Neurofibromatosis Awareness Month, and hopefully you will find this extremely encouraging. And now I'm turning it over to Hugh McCoy and Sarah Powlison.
Well, Sarah, it is an absolute delight to be able to meet you. I've heard so much about you. I have seen your blog and I've read some of your poetry and I've heard your testimony, which is amazing. But I finally get a chance to meet you, at least virtually. And it's just great to put a face with all the great things that I've heard. So you're married to Michael, been married 24 years, and you have 3 adult sons that are in college and grad school. And I found it greatly interesting as well is that you have 3 Hungarian Wislas,
Yes.
and they're all from the same litter. So tell us about that. How did that come about?
So when our first dog, Bishop, was about 6 years old, we learned that their sibling's owner had passed away suddenly. And so 2 of his sisters were in need of a home. And my husband said, "They're his sisters. We need to take them in." So we inherited 2 dogs and we renamed them because we thought they needed just a new experience and a new life and symbolized that. So we named them Eponine and Cosette, Bishop, Eponine, Cosette, all from my favorite book, Les Miserables. And they have been here ever since. So about 4 years, they'll be 10 in just a couple of weeks. And they are balls of energy.
And they're bigger dogs, right?
The smallest one, Cosette, is about 35 pounds, and Bishop is about 64 pounds. So, but skinny, muscly, strong.
That's great. We have a miniature Dachshund that's 12 pounds and overweight. So imagine you have your hands full with those.
Yes.
So besides being a wife and a mom, you're also a rare disease advocate. You're a writer. You're an occasional speaker. So what do you find is the most magical part of your life during this season?
It's the opportunities that I've had to come alongside other people who are living with NF or who are a parent of someone living with NF and to show them that they're not alone. When a parent says that they finally felt hope or they finally realize that they're not walking through this alone or that they see that their child has a future, that has been it's been incredible. It's been more meaningful than anything that I could write, any money that I can raise, any research I can contribute to. It's that knowing that I have shown another person that they're not alone. It's amazing.
So Sarah, you have a rare disease called neurofibromatosis, NF1, and I understand there's NF2. So tell us a little bit about that. What exactly is the disease? We have listeners that may have never heard of that. So just give us an idea of what that is, the NF1, and how maybe it's different.
So neurofibromatosis, it's a group of genetic conditions that causes tumors to grow on nerves, and that can be anywhere in the body. It can be on the skin or under the skin. It can be in nerves of the eye or nerves of the brain or hearing nerves. It can cause physical differences. It can cause learning differences. It can cause extreme pain or bone problems. Most of the people who have NF2 will eventually lose their hearing because of tumors that are on the hearing nerves. And then with another type of neurofibromatosis called schwannomatosis, it can cause widespread pain or peripheral nerve tumors. And then NF1, the kind of neurofibromatosis that I have, it causes those nerve tumors. A lot of people will have them on the skin. Mine are innumerable and underneath the skin where you can't see for the most part. And it causes just extreme pain for me, and it causes tumors in a lot of my peripheral nerves.
So You were born with NF1.
Yes.
And at what age did you realize that you had a rare disease that was going to be part of your lifelong journey? And also, what were the physical symptoms or experiences that impacted you most as a young person?
So I have known that I have neurofibromatosis my entire life. I was born with 6 tumors that were coming out of my mouth. They were all together about the size of a small orange, and my 2 people in my family have a diagnosis of NF as well, and because NF is a genetic condition and 50%, it's a 50% chance of passing it on to a child if you have NF. So I inherited it from a parent, and having been born with those tumors, they knew immediately what it was, and I've just grown up saying it, being a small child and explaining to people why I have, cafe au lait birthmarks, coffee colored birthmarks. People would ask me, what are those birthmarks? Why do you have so many? And I would explain that they were a manifestation of Van Recklinghausen disease. And at 4 years old, that's kind of cute to hear someone say that. But it's just something that I've always known about. And it was never anything I feel I had to learn about. It's just something that I grew up knowing. As a young child, the biggest manifestations were the physical birthmarks that people would ask about, a few tumors that I could feel that would hurt, especially at the back of my head or in my arm, and then a few other issues that popped up here and there. And that's what it was as a child.
What does NF1 look like for you today? On a day to day basis, what do you experience?
Honestly, I was pretty much able to ignore NF and let it be in the background of my life until I was, till my children graduated from homeschool and they went off to college or they were about to go off to college. And that part of my life started slowing down and I started being more aware of a lot of pain that was cropping up. It was in my lower body. It hurt more and more when I sat. I could feel tumors growing and I knew that I needed to have someone to help me and I needed to respond to this in some way. So for me as an adult, it's just the extreme pain that I feel. It's noticing some of the skin differences that are becoming more noticeable. They're not as noticeable as they are for others, but they're more noticeable to me.
So, in seasons when the challenges, the uncertainties, the symptoms are especially heavy, what helps you stay grounded?
It's not to oversimplify it, but it really is knowing that all of this is temporary, that what I'm experiencing now, it's going to pale in comparison to the future that I have in heaven. And I'm building opportunities. I'm having opportunities to to build character, to build faith, to build trust in God. And those are feelings that I have, but I also have actions that I do to put those into place. So practicing joy, practicing gratitude, practicing sonder, which is the realization that everyone you meet has a story as rich and complex as your own that you know nothing about. And that gives me empathy for other people and understanding to want to know their story and to learn their story. And that helps me to walk with my story when I hear the stories of other people and how they're dealing with things. It's allowing myself to actually grieve, to lament when I'm experiencing it and not pretending that it's not happening because that's not true, but it's crying out to God. It's talking to my own soul, encouraging my own soul through prayer. I often will put on my headphones and I'll go on really long walks in my neighborhood with just music that's far too loud that just allows me to spend time being reminded about what is really true.
So, God has given you a particularly difficult journey. I think it's important to note that my wife has MS, multiple sclerosis. She's had it for 30 years. She says God gifted her with that. And she says she's been gifted with it because it's a journey that God gave her with a purpose. And we all have a journey with a purpose. And you have a difficult journey that you experience every day. So how has this journey shaped your understanding about God and about suffering and about hope? How has that all come together to just make this purpose real to you and to be able to see it as a gift? Because I hear that in your voice is that you have this and you're going to use it for God's glory and for the good of yourself, your family, and others.
What makes us more equipped to speak to other people who are suffering and in pain than to have truly experienced it ourselves? If I had an easy life, if I had an easy experience, if everything was handed to me, what right would I have to speak to anybody else with any truth, with any real love and empathy, but to have walked down those paths myself? To like, how else could I be a good friend to anyone else? And so it's just given me. I know the map. I've walked the road. I can love other people and give them true friendship because of this.
Yeah. And you don't know what somebody else is going through.
Yeah.
You have gone through life with a disease that doesn't have a lot of outward symptoms that people can just see those readily, some marks and so forth, but not something that, all of your pain is from the inside, I would say. And so, you've been given this, and how do you balance trusting God with the lament? Because both are important. And there's times that we rejoice and there's times that we grieve, but God says we should rejoice in all things, give thanks in all things. And so there's a balance there of trusting and lamenting. Can you comment to that for our listeners?
I've just really learned that I can hold things with two hands. I can hold lament in one hand and I can hold joy in the other. Joy isn't the same thing as happiness. It's not the same thing as being silly. It's just or brushing it off. It's knowing the future, knowing both truths that I can be in pain and I can trust my future to a good God who cares. I can be sad that I'm hurt, or I can be fearful of what life on earth will look like for me over the next 20, 30 years, but also be excited about heaven. And I can be glad that despite as despite the hardness and the pain that NF has given me, I made some amazing friends. I've met some incredible people. Friendships that I just can't even believe that I have with people who are all across the world. And okay, I have a misspelled chromosome that causes a lot of problems. But there are also good things, and NF has given me good things, and I can thank God for those good things and accept the bad stuff too.
So kind of speaking to those relationships, what kind of support has been most meaningful from family, from friends, from your faith community? What would you say has helped you the most?
People who are really able and willing to listen and not give pat answers or give answers that really aren't true. It's very easy sometimes, I think, in the faith community to tell people that they need to just pray more or they need to just get rid of sin in their lives and they would magically be healed or miraculously be healed. And not not every hardship comes with a healing that we can see or a healing that is physical. Sometimes the healing is in our hearts or in our soul, or it's a different type of growth that we have. That's the healing. So when faith communities don't try to conjure up a solution that's not from God, that's been incredibly helpful. People who who care enough to keep asking and still being my friend. And then in the friendship community, just that we can get into some dark humor and just being able to laugh at ourselves, laugh at our situation, because what else can you do but just to laugh about it? share a song that has really touched us, or a poem or a prayer. It's all those things. It's that gamut of let's laugh about it, let's commiserate together, and let's actually look out for each other and make sure we are taking care of ourselves. We're doing the things that we can choose to do. We're eating well. We're practicing gratitude, like I mentioned earlier. So it's friends and family who are thinking holistically, meaning the whole person, about the situation and bringing that support in, and not trying to be miserable comforters, sort of like Job's friends who came in and they gave these half truths about Yahweh, that because they were half truths, they were wholly untrue. And that's definitely not helpful.
Interesting you said Job, because I'm right in the middle of Job in my daily Bible reading. So I was reading Job this morning and processing through that. It's important that people around you in relationships, that they understand how to help you. Referencing back to my wife who has MS, when she would fall,
Mm.
as a husband and as a fix-it person, I would immediately try to get her up, and she would say, I just need a minute. I need to be able to help myself get up with your assistance. And so we got to where when she would fall, I would just get down on the floor right beside her, and I would just hold her in my arms. And that has been some of the sweetest times for us. We would maybe cry together, laugh together, and then say a prayer, and then would both get up as slowly as she needs, with as little assistance as she needs. But it's important that people understand how to be able to help you, and that you be able to voice that to them and say, this is really what helps. This is the kind of encouragement that I need. I think that's really important. So is there anything that you would say to the Christian community that you think would be some advice to help them better support people that are living with a rare disease? How would you say the church could come along and maybe take it next level?
I think that people who live with a rare condition or a physical hardship, the big thing is we want to be seen for more than what is on the outside. We want people to, first of all, assume competency. We want people to get to know us and not just, comment on the physical or assume by looking at the outside what's going on. And we want to really have people listen to us and learn us. My needs, my desires, the way that I feel loved or supported, it's probably going to be different than the next person. And so we can't just, you know, Jesus didn't heal every single person the same way, and he didn't speak to every single person the same way. And we shouldn't treat anyone in the church, whether they have a physical disability or a rare disease or a medical condition, the same exact way, like it's a cookie cutter, but it's becoming building actual relationships and actual friendships so that we can learn about their needs. And like you said with your wife, the way that you learned, for her, she wants to take a beat, and then she wants to do it on her own as much as she can, with you being her cheerleader, being her supporter, and that physical help. That's what she needs. I know for me, the one of the challenges that I have had to walk through with NF is, I've lost the ability, or lost not being a burden to others. I know that my condition is a burden to my family. It's a burden to others. Does that mean they're not willing to do it? No, they are willing to do it, but it's a huge loss for me. You're a fixer. I'm a doer. I'm a helper. I'm the caretaker. And so when someone has to come and help me, that's frustrating. I don't I don't want to be taken care of. I want to take care of others. So having patience, listening, and understanding that we have a different sense of humor. So being able to laugh with us and don't be ruffled if we are able to joke it off, and we might be smiling, we might have our hair combed and our makeup on, our mascara done, but that doesn't mean that kind of beneath the surface it's not hard.
And that's why that communication is so important, because it turns something that could potentially be awkward into those precious moments, to that real connection. My wife's able to laugh about what she goes through. She's in a wheelchair, and she tells people that I'm always pushing her around and talking behind her back. So, of course, I roll my eyes because I've heard that quite a few times, but, we just laugh about it. It's hard, it's difficult, and your rare disease is difficult, but the relationships should not be difficult, and
Yeah.
that's where we need great communication with other people.
And I'd like to add, don't expect that you're owed the whole story. Be okay with not knowing someone's whole story until or if they want to share it with you. It's some days we just want to be anonymous. We want to just not talk about it. When people ask me to rate my pain on a scale of 1 to 10, that's not an okay question to ask. And I will let people know that, they're not entitled to know everything to support me or my health.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. So, Sarah, as a biblical counselor, one of the things that I try to establish early on with a counselee is where they have their identity. Where we have our identity is critically important. And so, how has NF1, how has that shaped your identity?
So I see myself as an advocate. When people ask me, "What do you do, Sarah?" I used to say, "I'm a homeschool parent. I homeschool my three children." And now that they're graduated, I've moved on to this new role. I'm an advocate. Which that word is so cool because it has the same etymology as an intercessor. It's someone who stands in the gap and who speaks and fights for someone else. So I think that that's who I am. I'm an intercessor in this role and in this realm and in other realms too. But that's who I am.
So, some of our listeners that have rare diseases may have felt at some point misunderstood or overlooked or isolated because of their disease. How would you encourage them in that?
I would really encourage them to find their teammates, find the people who are in their local life, really, who maybe they don't have the same experience with that as them with what they're going through, but they love them, and build those friendships. Be really intentional about being a good friend and then accepting friendship. And then kind of the next step would be find the advocacy groups that support your condition. See what's going out there. Know what the landscape is of what the healthcare options are for you, what the support is. Having other people that live with what you live with is vital. You have to have people who actually understand you, who you can have that relationship with. You can support each other. You can commiserate about your latest MRI scan or how long it was. Those things are important to relate to other people with. Practice advocating for yourself with your healthcare providers. Really be intentional about asking the right questions and writing things down. So it's all those layers of caring for yourself physically and then having that interrelationships with all different types of people.
Since you brought up healthcare providers, what do you wish that healthcare providers better understood about adults living with rare diseases?
I'm very thankful that most of my NF care providers now, or all of my NF care providers now, are fantastic. We have great relationships, and I think that I know that I trust them to provide the care that I want and need. I would say people who are not NF experts, I would want them to understand that no case of NF is like another case of NF. We're all very different, and you're not going to have a phenotype that says that's what NF looks like. And I would want them all to assume competency, not assume that I can't understand or another person with NF can't understand or won't understand what they're explaining. And I would like them to have the humility to know that they probably don't know as much as that NF patient if they are not an NF doctor, because we live it, we experience it every day. We often know what the standards of care are better than a doctor who doesn't deal with NF patients all of the time. So I would really want them to treat their patients as equal partners in caring for their patient. They're the expert in what's possible in medicine. We're the experts in our own bodies. So we want to be treated like partners, equal partners in healthcare planning.
So, what would you say to someone who's been newly diagnosed with a rare disease? I know many times a person feels weary or frightened or alone, and they're looking at the future, having no idea what they're going to face next. And so they've been newly diagnosed. What encouragement or hope would you give them?
I would want them to know that I'm glad that they exist and that their existence is not a mistake, that they're not alone, despite feeling like they're alone or feeling like they don't know the future. Their future is known, and God is still good, and they have a purpose.
So, how can we pray for and support those living with a rare disease? How can we pray for them or support them? We've alluded to that, in this conversation already, but as we're praying for them and as we're thinking forward as far as how to help them, what would you suggest?
I think it's no small thing to actually pray for science. Their science is a gift from God because we have a known creation, right? So science can happen because we have things that God put into place, and it's a known world and a known God. So we can pray for scientists who are curious and who are compassionate and who want to come up with solutions. We can pray that they will get healthcare providers that are also curious and compassionate that will help them to access that care. Praying for insurance companies, praying for the bandwidth and the ability to find the care that they need, to have the resources that they need, praying that they would have, peace and security and um, I don't know, the mental and emotional energy to keep walking through it every day. And when they have a hard day, to actually cast those cares where they matter, right? We're not just turning inward and becoming depressed about what we're experiencing with, but we're lamenting it. So praying that people would have others to speak to. They would have friends that really care, family that cares. And so just praying in those ways.
Prayer is just so important and so amazing, and we need to take it seriously. I think many times we casually say, "I'll pray for you," and hopefully we'll take that seriously and we'll actually pray for people and pray that
Yes.
God will give them the resources that they need. And so, are there any Christian authors or influencers, podcasters that you personally have found to be particularly encouraging?
One of my favorite books is called Dark Clouds, Deep Mercy by Mark Rogoff. And it takes you through proper lament so that you can truly experience joy. That's been one of my favorite books, and I recommend it to others. I also really appreciate Johnny Erickson Tata. I've read multiple books of hers, and I enjoy listening to her when she speaks and what she shares because she has so many good things to say, not only about overcoming what she has, but then also how she relates to other people when they're going through hard things. Because sometimes I think it can be easy to, if you go through something really hard, to imagine that no one else has it as hard as you and they shouldn't be complaining. But that's not really true. We all have hard is hard, and we can have empathy for others when they're experiencing hard things. I also really appreciated learning a new one from your wife, Hugh. It's Catherine Wolfe and her book, Hope Heals. I have many friends who, through the experiencing or through the impacts of NF2, they've gone completely deaf. They have, facial paralysis and hand paralysis. And so what they experience is quite similar to what Catherine Wolfe experiences, even though the reasons are very different. And so I really appreciated reading Catherine's story. And it's one that I'm absolutely recommending to friends of mine to read because she's a real encouragement. And then finally, a favorite of mine, it's a classic, John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. I read it to my sons when I was homeschooling them. They made me do every single character in a different accent. And I had to keep track of every single accent throughout the whole book. And that's a real challenge if you've ever read it. But I love reading Christian's story of walking through to the eternal city, and it's been a real encouragement to me. And sometimes I just imagine this pack on my back, and like when Christian loses the big pack and the burden on his back, and he feels so free. That's some days I feel like I have that burden, and I'm reminded, like Christian, to get rid of it.
Speaking of authors, Sarah, you have just written an exciting book and it's still in the publishing phase. And I have actually kind of pre-ordered through you is the fact that I want to get this book for my granddaughters and my grandsons. And I think it's an important book for kids with rare diseases, but also for other kids to learn about friends that have different challenges that maybe they don't have. So can you kind of give us a glimpse into the theme of the book and kind of the target audience?
Yeah, so this is certainly Sonder, and is written by me, and it's illustrated by my friend Amanda Rose, who lives with NF2. And Sonder wishes like he could be like everyone else. But it's through the love of his parents that he learns the meaning of his name, and he discovers that everyone has a story, strengths that make them special, and a place where they belong. So Sonder learns that he's more than what he looks like, and he learns how to love his enemies and to love his friends and to know that he was made for a purpose.
I can't wait till that comes out. That is going to be so exciting. And I just pray that it'd be a great blessing to so many people.
Thank you.
So, Sarah, you have a blog and a website, I guess, and you have some beautiful poetry, some wonderful resources. Um, would you be willing to share one of your poems with us?
Sure.
That may have caught you off guard, but
Yeah.
I would love to hear something from your writings.
Pulling it up. This is one I actually wrote several years ago, probably in 2021. So it was when stuff was getting pretty hard for me, and I really needed to start writing again. I lift my hands in surrender, rest in worship of you, because this is where I find my hallelujah. We'll dance in the fire and to know this is not a crisis to you. Here, my mountains melt like wax before you. You are moving them into the heart of the sea. When all I want to do is hide my eyes, you pull me into your arms and call me child. And here in the dark is where you hold my hallelujah. Oh, you march out to me on the waves of my sea. You overwhelm my troubles. They sink next to you. When you stretched out the heavens, you made a space for me. Only when I am afraid can you give me courage. Like a rough and uncut diamond, my worth is hard to find. But you polish me with troubles. You trust me with suffering. Yahweh, you let me relate with you, and you invite me into dark places where I can represent you. In the heartache of deep waters, in the tumble of these waves, you're revealing facets in me that make your value shine.
Wow. The fact that God trusted you with suffering says a lot about you and a lot about how you've made this a mission in your life and you have determined to use this to help other people. And that makes it an even more beautiful story. God never wastes any pain, He never wastes any tears, and He has a design and a purpose for everything. So, Sarah, on behalf of CFRD, the Center for Faith and Rare Disease, Thank you so much for joining us today, for taking time out of your busy schedule
Pleasure.
just to share with us your story. And it has been an absolute delight. Looking forward to your book once again. And I would really encourage our listeners to look at your blog uh, and just check out the resources that you have, read your poetry. So tell us finally just where do they go to find you?
Nicelittle.skiff.com.
Okay, nicelittlestiffs.com. All right. And then they can probably Google your name as well to find that if they
Most
forget.
likely, but
Yeah,
nicelittleskip.com. I think if you were to Google NF Advocate, apparently my name is showing up pretty well these days. I have been told, but nicelittleskip.com. And there are multiple pages on there with resources for NF advocacy groups, more explanation about what NF is, information about Certainly Sonder, my poetry, and blog resources. And I have some guests that I've had on the blog recently, and it's a great resource for others.
that's great. And we will also add you as a resource on the CFRD website
Wonderful,
so that they can even look at our website and find you through there as well. So
wonderful.
I
And
appreciate
y'all
it.
are on y'all are on the friends page of Nice Little Skiff.
Great. That's awesome. Well, have a wonderful day. Thanks again for you joining us, and we thank our listeners for joining in and just being with us. And if there's any way that we can help, that we can come along and encourage any of you, we would love to have that opportunity. So thanks, Sarah, and hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.